All right, I think we can get started here, and we might have a few more folks join us. But welcome. My name is Karin Austin. I am the Director of Gift Planning at PLU, and we are thrilled to have you all here with us today. We are going to talk about giving a gift that pays you back. I am going to start with a few Zoom housekeeping things. This is the third in a series that Doug and I have been lucky to be a part of. We will, if you're interested in the other events that have taken place in the series, we'll send a link to past recordings of those. But we are so grateful to have Steve Slotemaker with us today from Caspic, and Doug will introduce Steve in a moment. Housekeeping, the Q&A is open, so please do ask questions. I will be looking at those, and Steve has a great presentation for us, but we can answer questions along the way. So I'll jump in with those questions as they come up, and then we'll have some time at the end as well for questions. And then if anything comes up after the fact, we will make sure you have all of our contact information so you can let us know. With that, I will pass it off to Doug, the Executive Director of Gift Planning here at PLU, to introduce our guest.
Thank you, Karin. Well, we are really lucky that Steve Slotemaker is with us. Steve is our relationship manager with TIAA Caspic. Many of you are familiar with TIAA, one of the largest managers of retirement funds in the country. Maybe Steve can tell us how many billions or maybe trillions, I don't even know. But TIAA Caspic, they actually manage right around $7.7 billion. Unfortunately, it's not all PLU money. They have a lot of other clients as well. But we're happy and fortunate that we have them as our partner with our gift planning program. Steve has been with TIAA CREF since 2013, although I said TIAA CREF, TIAA Caspic since 2013. He's a WSU graduate, go Cougs. He's got a business administration degree as well as an MBA from WSU. And a lot of you think that I'm kind of smart when it comes to these things. The truth of the matter is I just call Steve whenever I have a tough question. And so that's my confession. So Steve, that's my introduction of you. Let's get started.
Well, thank you. I think you're quite smart, Doug, so don't undersell yourself. Thank you, Doug and Karin, for inviting me to spend some time, the lunch hour, with you and with your donors. I really appreciate it. I had the blessing of working at Oregon State University and gift planning, and I just loved meeting donors and learning about their stories and their just amazing generosity. So it's really a gift for me to spend this time with you, and I enjoy kind of helping people understand some of the options that are available to them and the opportunities that they might not have otherwise understood. And to know that I might play just a small role, much smaller than Karin, Doug, or certainly you as donors might play in supporting PLU is really, really rewarding for me. My personal connection outside of work with PLU is my older cousin. He went to PLU and he played basketball there in the early 90s, and I was an aspiring basketball player at the time, and really kind of showed me the path that basketball can happen in college. I didn't know that as a kid. And so I always kind of kept track on the PLU basketball team in the early 90s when he was playing there. Have some other people that I know as well that have gone to PLU. So anyhow, that's me. I appreciate being here. And please do ask questions, as Karin said, by typing in the Q&A. I'd love the opportunity to hear what you're thinking and maybe help clarify some things that I might not make that clear in this presentation. So with that, we'll get started. So the first thing I want to talk about is the objectives that you all might have as donors. I think most donors, as they consider a gift to PLU, are going to think about some of the objectives that they have in mind. And we'll talk about 4 categories that I often think of that these objectives fit within. And you might be thinking about some of your goals and see where they fit within this framework, and it might help you in understanding and kind of fleshing out your goals. I've been working with my parents anecdotally on them writing out goals for the rest of their life and their assets. They're in their upper 70s. And it's a challenging undertaking, and I hope that these categories might help you in kind of assessing what you want to accomplish. So let's take a look at them. And we've got them here in this little diagram that I don't think is actually that accurate, because I think there's a lot more overlapping than this diagram affords. And this puts philanthropic at the center, and that might be a little bit self-serving. You may have other ones that are at the center for your life, and that's wonderful. And but I think these 4 categories, though, apply to everyone that is on the call, and certainly apply to me in my life. So let's just give some examples of these quickly to put some meat on the bones of the skeleton, if you will. So we have financial planning goals, and those goals might be, examples of those might be, I want to increase income. And I may want to increase that income for myself as I'm planning for retirement. I may want to increase income or provide stable income for a surviving spouse. If I think I might pass on before my lovely wife, I want her to have stable, increased potentially income. Maybe for a loved one, a child, or for some of our younger donors, it may be for a parent that they want to provide some support to. So, obviously that overlaps, as I mentioned, some of these with family. So you can see how the kind of the Venn diagram, as at least as presented here, breaks down. Another financial goal might be diversifying your sources of income. I think of some people in Seattle who have a ton of Microsoft stock. They may work there their whole career, and they're really at the whims of Microsoft's performance, and they want to diversify out of that. But to do that, they'd have to pay capital gains tax. So that might be a financial planning. There may be succession planning. For my parents, it's succession planning is one of their big goals. They've accumulated rental properties. And my dad, in his upper 70s, is tired of managing those. And so what are his goals around transferring the wealth there to charity, maybe to family members, avoiding capital gains tax, getting rid of property management, but still getting the income that might be important to them. So some of these are some of the financial planning topics or goals that you may see yourself in. When we jump down to family, often it's providing income security for loved ones. I talked about a surviving spouse or maybe a child. There's other family goals that you may have. I was talking to a client earlier this morning, and he said that their donor had 4 kids, one of which is kind of the black sheep. And the goal for that donor is, one of the main goals, is to restore the relationship with this son that has kind of been the prodigal son, if you will. And so that's a goal, and a very worthwhile goal. Personal goals. They may be, I want to reduce my management responsibilities over the assets of which are providing income to me and my loved ones. That may be a goal. It may be a goal to travel more, to have more discretionary income to travel. Might be a goal to play more golf, or there can be any number of goals. My retirement goal is to move to Scotland, to play golf, and to go to seminary. So, there's all types of personal goals that individuals might have. So a final goal here in the center in this little schematic is your philanthropic goals. And this might be to advance maybe an important aspect of the charity that you care about's mission. Obviously, that would overlap with your personal goals because it's going to align with your values, maybe with family goals because you may have family that have attended PLU for a generation or two. And so, it's all intermixed. You may want to support a campaign at a charity or at PLU and provide support there. Maybe a professor or a certain program. I heard about the Holocaust and Genocide program at PLU. That may be a program that speaks to you that you want to support philanthropically. So hopefully, as we've talked about this, I probably spent too much time on it, but hopefully you felt yourself and some of your goals within these categories. And I encourage you to, maybe keep on holding on to those as we look at some of the content here further along in this. All right, so let's think about, because we're here representing kind of PLU and philanthropy. So we're going to be talking about the goals as it relates to your philanthropic desires and ways that that you can maybe get paid income back for a gift you made. But there's many ways to make gifts. And let's just talk about kind of the main three categories very quickly. The first is you can give a gift now. Most all of us are doing this. I know I am, and so I, write a check to Campus Crusade for Christ is one of mine, and so that's just an outright gift that I make. There's another one where we can give at death. So, my estate plan, most all of my assets are going to go to my family members. I may revise that as I get older, but no gifts now, all at death. And then there's this kind of middle category that we're going to spend more time on and focus on today, is where you can give a gift now, you can receive an income for a period of years or for the rest of your life, and then whatever's left associated with that gift asset passes on to PLU to support the causes at PLU, the mission and the values of PLU that you want to support. And so it's really this middle one that we're going to focus on today. Give a gift now, receive an income, and the remainder of that gift will pass on to charity. So let's look at how this gift kind of flows in this schematic here. So it always starts with a donor, and that can be an individual or it can be a married couple, and they transfer or make a gift of cash. It could be securities, it could be stocks. We talked about Microsoft earlier. It may be a Microsoft stock. It may be a portfolio of many stocks, or it can be property, broadly property. Often we see real estate. We've seen gifts of art. I've seen a Stradivarius, which is always hard for me to spell when I have to write that out. We've seen gifts of airplanes and other types of property. So don't limit yourself there when you're thinking about some of the assets that you own that might fit with some of your objectives earlier. So a gift of cash, securities, or property to what is broadly called the life income gift. And we'll look at two varieties of these and some of their subcharacteristics here in a bit. So you give a gift of cash to this life income gift. And then you, as the donor couple, receive some things in exchange for that gift. First, you would receive a charitable income tax deduction, and that is afforded to you in the year that you make the gift. So that's an immediate benefit to you, like you would get with an outright gift. You get the charitable deduction immediately. And in a life income gift, the deduction's a bit reduced because you're going to receive the next line item there, which is the income stream for life. And so the IRS reduces your deduction slightly because you're going to get income for life in exchange for this gift. So immediate tax deduction, which is helpful sometimes on our objectives, and then an income stream for life, which also would be helpful on your objectives list as you've thought about them. And then after this relationship with a life income gift, paying the donor couple or it could be another individual in certain circumstances. After that's completed, typically because the donors have died, then whatever is left in the life income gift passes on in our third step, the remainder, to PLU. And so then PLU would put it towards what you want it to be put towards: scholarship, professorship, programmatic support, or whatever it is that's meaningful for you that PLU needs support in. So if there's any questions on, we kind of raced through some stuff, feel free to use the Q&A, and we can address those kind of in line with when they come up for you. All right, so let's move on to kind of the two main types of life income gifts. We had in the schematic, step one is we fund a life income gift. And I said there's a couple of types, and then there's varieties within those. So let's look at the two types. The first is a charitable gift annuity. And a charitable gift annuity is a simple contract that you enter into with PLU. It provides a fixed payment amount the year of the gift, and then for the rest of your life, typically it's the year of the gift. But it's a fixed payment amount. So you give $100,000 and you may get, depending on what the contract says, $5,000 each year, every year for the rest of your life. That payment amount doesn't go up, nor does it go down. And it's a general obligation of PLU. That means that PLU has to make this payment to you of $5,000 in this example, regardless of if the funding asset, the asset that you transferred to them, can't support that payment. So, for some of us, we may remember Enron. So if you transfer Enron stock in exchange for a gift annuity, you get your $5,000 payment, and the Enron stock goes poof in the night because of some improprieties and other things. Then PLU still has to make the $5,000 payment. So a lot of certainty, both in the payment amount and the certainty that you'll receive that payment. So that's a charitable gift annuity. We may call those a CGA as we go through this. And then the other type is called a charitable remainder unit trust, or we may call it a CRUT. And let's look at some of the characteristics of that. It's a separate legal entity, so it's not a contract. It is its own separate legal entity, its own tax ID number, and it provides for a variable payment. So you fund it with $100,000 as an example. It has a payout rate of 5%. You get $5,000 in the first year. In the second year, we revalue the trust, and let's say that $100,000 is now worth $110,000. Well, then your payment's going to go up because it's going to be 5% of $110,000. And the payment may go down in a future year if the value goes back to $100,000. It's going to be a $5,000 payment in that future year. So the payment amount's variable. It's going to go up and it's going to go down. Over the long term, it typically goes up. And the payments are not backed by PLU. They are backed by the assets in the trust. It's a separate legal entity. It stands on its own. And so you contribute an asset there, it's sold, and that asset supports the payments for the duration of the charitable remainder trust. Okay, so let's consider when you might choose one of these two varieties. We've got the CRUT, we've got the CGA, we've got the annuity fixed payment, we've got the variable payment. Let's think about when we might choose one versus the other. And ultimately, this is a choice that you as donors would make, but it's not a choice you have to make alone. We would want you to talk with Karin and Doug because they know these things. As self-deprecating as Doug was in the beginning, Doug knows these things. And so Doug can be, your partner as you consider these two types of gifts. And there's a lot of things that they share in common, and we see those listed here. They both provide a lifetime income. They both diversify tax-free. And so in the example of Microsoft stock, you've got $1 million in Microsoft. You give that to a gift annuity or to fund a charitable remainder trust, and that asset is sold and diversified into a basket of mutual funds that is broadly diversified. All of that is done without any tax implication because a charitable remainder trust is a tax-exempt entity, and a CGA funded with PLU is a tax-exempt entity. And so all $1 million of that Microsoft stock that's contributed to one of these gifts is available to support your payment. Excuse me. And then you get an income tax deduction, as we talked about earlier, and that's in the year of the gift. And then ultimately, there will be a gift to charity from one of these two gift arrangements. So both of those gift types share these things in common. Where a charitable remainder trust is a bit different, we've listed here. As we talked about, it's variable income, but it provides the potential for increasing income. And that's what it generally has done. As the stock market has risen over the long term, I think 10, 15, 20 years, so too have income payments out of the trust. They have risen in lockstep with the stock market. Illiquid funding assets are available to fund charitable remainder trusts. Real estate is a very common funding asset for a charitable remainder trust. You can have more than two beneficiaries. Most often it is the donor couple that receives the income payment. But if the donor couple wants to include somebody else as an income beneficiary, they're able to do You're not able to do that in a gift annuity on the left-hand side. Those are just for 2 individuals. There can be multiple remaindermen in a charitable remainder trust, and a remainderman is a charitable entity. Often it's PLU gets 100%. That's obviously what I would hope for. But if you are passionate about PLU and you're also passionate about your local church and you want your church to get 20%, that's something that Doug and Karen can talk to you about. There's future additions to a charitable remainder trust. So you set up this legal entity, it can receive additions in the future if that's something that you want to do. If you make additions to the trust, your payment will increase because the trust assets have increased. And then for some donors, they don't want income for the rest of their life. They want income for a certain period of time because they have another asset that's going to support their income stream in the future. And so they really need, you might call it gap funding, this gap in time. And so payouts can be for a term of years. So there's a lot of flexibility in a charitable remainder trust. And that's why I think, Doug and Karen can kind of come alongside you in the consideration of those gifts. So I'm pausing for any Q&A that you might have. Feel free to type those in. And what we'll do next is we'll look at some donors and some examples to really kind of flesh these out. And again, I think about your objectives that we kind of put that framework for earlier and kind of see where some of your objectives might be satisfied or helped by one of these gifts. All right. So let's move on to an example. So we've got this nice gentleman here, and what I'll do in these examples is I'll frame up kind of the donor's objectives, and some of these may be similar to yours, some of them may be different. And then we'll talk about the life income gift that was put in place to kind of dovetail with those objectives, support those objectives. And then we'll kind of confirm that when we look back at the donor. So we'll go through this pattern for a couple of examples. So here's Reginald, and he shared with us the following objectives. So he shared pretty clearly that he wants to increase income. And he has a large amount of shares in a single company. It's one that Reginald had the privilege of working for, but its dividend, the payout on those shares, is quite modest. So it doesn't provide him a lot of cash flow, although it does have a lot of value. And so he'd like to increase some of his income from this concentrated holding that he has that has a low dividend. He also wants to avoid capital gains tax. He doesn't want to have to pay tax and sell this stock or a portion of this stock, pay a big 20, 25, 28% in capital gains just to unlock some income for himself or some money for himself. And so that's an objective of his. And then finally, he was a student that received a scholarship at his institution, and he wants to pay it back. And so it's important to him that he provides enough funds to establish a scholarship endowment at the charity. So let's look at a gift plan that can accomplish these objectives. And the first one we're going to talk about is the charitable remainder unit trust that we introduced earlier, but we're going to look at this one for Reginald, and it may, again, kind of put a little bit of more meat on the bones of this new gift concept that might be new for some of you. And what we're really stressing here is the payment stream that Reginald's going to get, and we'll talk a bit about the funding asset. So the funding asset, as we'll recall, is this appreciated stock that he received as some compensation for his work at the company. And it was valued at $200,000. It has a 1% dividend yield, 1%. That's kind of common for some stocks. And so it was paying him about $2,000 per year, and he wanted to see an increase in income. So he funded what is a 5% payout charitable remainder unit trust. So it pays out to him 5% annually of its market value. It was funded with the $200,000 in appreciated stock. So the payout to him in year one, as we see here on the chart, is $10,000. So his income by making this gift went from $2,000. He wanted increased income. It's now at $10,000. When he funded this gift, he gave $200,000, no taxes on this, no capital gains tax on this transfer because it's going to a charitable entity. So that's a benefit to him. And he gets a charitable deduction for this. The deduction for Reginald, who's about 70 years old, is $104,000. And so that's got economic value to him too. Wasn't one of his objectives to get a deduction, but it is helpful to him. So if we look at his payment experience in this case, year one, he gets a 5% payment, the $10,000 we talked about earlier. Year two, trust value went up a little bit. His payment's $11,320. Year three, trust value almost kind of stayed the same. We got another $11,300 payment. And then year four happened. Oh no, the stock market went down, and his payment went down to nearly $7,700. We see a bit of a recovery, but in year six, it's right about where it was when it was funded. And we don't like to see year four and year fives happen. They do happen. Over the next 14 years, if he lives till he's 90, likely we're going to see that continue to go up, and his payments will be $12,000, $15,000, $16,000. They'll go up and they'll go down. But I think the key objective for him was to increase his income, and he certainly did that. He went from $2,000 to $10,000, and it was increased income even in year four. So we were able to satisfy that objective by way of the charitable remainder trust. What's not shown on this chart, which is important, is when he dies, let's say in 20 years, whatever's left in this trust account goes to fund that scholarship that was so important to him. And he's got that assurance once he sets this trust up, that there's money set aside. It's irrevocable. It's not changeable. It's going to go to PLU for that scholarship that's important to him. All right, let's take a look at Reginald again and his objectives here. So he said he wanted to increase income. I think I've beaten this into the presentation, that it went up from $2,000 to $10,000 in year one. So we accomplished that goal. We wanted to avoid capital gains tax. We talked about how that was avoided. And so that's a wonderful thing for him. And that's true if it's a gift of any appreciated asset, be it stock in this case, but if it's real estate that's highly appreciated, you avoid that tax as well at the transfer. And then, importantly for him is he'd like to help students, and he has that assurance that this trust will do that. And if our estimated values all play out, which they never do, but they're our best estimates, the value of this trust when Reginald is expected to die based on mortality tables would be about $270,000. So it's not that he's giving less than $100,000; he's giving more than that, even to the students, while he's also received income. So hopefully this is one that really is satisfactory towards his objectives. And I know I've talked about Doug and Karin being able to come alongside donors and help them as they've considered their objectives and where a charitable remainder trust might be helpful. So I don't know, Doug and Karin, if there's some donors that you've worked with in a manner similar to this that you might want to share.
Yeah, Steve, thanks. It's interesting that this is a really very typical kind of case, and we've written a lot of charitable remainder trusts that have been funded with stock. I'm thinking of one in particular where a very astute investor purchased Apple stock many years ago, and he timed it pretty well. We created a charitable remainder trust. It was a 5% trust, and he transferred the Apple stock, and his portfolio was heavy Apple, just like you said. He really wanted to diversify his portfolio, and he was able to do that with this charitable trust and all the other things that you talked about. The charitable deduction was kind of gravy, and now this donor has passed, actually not many years ago. And it's doing some great things for us at PLU, for students at PLU, making a PLU education possible for a lot of students. So, yeah,
that's wonderful.
Stephen, Doug, I'm just going to jump in here. We did get one question about the slides and the main points of the slides, and we are absolutely happy to send those out. I will be sending out an email after all of this, and we'll get the high level of these slides in a PDF format for everyone who's here. So don't worry about pretending you're in college again and taking all the notes. You can just soak it in.
Yeah. Great. All right, let's move. Thanks for that story, Doug. And let's go on to another example of a donor. In this case, we're going to look at this gentleman. His name is Jerry. And we're talking about individuals here, but I will say that most often these are married couples and not single individuals. But in this case, Jerry owns a residence that he has rented out for years. And so you should know that. And let's think about some of Jerry's objectives as he shared them with us. He shared what a lot of people have shared when they have rented out property for years and their temples are turning gray. They start to say, I am getting tired of managing this rental property or all these rental properties or certain rental properties. And I want to do other things in my life. And I'm not working and my kids are all settled in their lives and I'm able to see them each for a week a year or 2 weeks a year. And I've got all this other time to satisfy my personal objectives, my passions. I'm volunteering, I'm doing these other things. And I don't want to have rental properties hanging over my head. So that was one of Jerry's goals. He also understands that he'd have to pay capital gains tax if he were to sell this thing. He's also depreciated the property and he'd have to pay depreciation recapture. And a transfer of this to a sale of this would cost him quite a bit in taxes, and that doesn't seem worthwhile to him. That doesn't really satisfy his objectives. In this case, transferring a property to a charitable remainder trust, could avoid that large tax at the transfer. And then, of course, he wants to have a gift that provides meaningful support to PLU. PLU's passion is he doesn't have the cash flow to make a big gift now as much as he would like to, but he wants assurances that PLU will receive some of the assets he's been blessed with. So this is Jerry. So let's take a look at a charitable remainder trust that's funded with real estate. When we do these, Doug and Karen will have conversations with you about including a provision that is called a flip provision. And so we want to explore this because so many of our trusts that we're receiving, that clients are doing, that CASPIC is kind of a party to, are being funded with real estate. So let's take a look at this schematic. It's similar to what we saw with Reginald, but with a key difference, so we'll talk about it. Jerry's a bit younger. He's 57 years old. He funded this. It also is a 5% payout. It is a flip charitable remainder trust, as you can see in the title there. It was funded with appreciated rental property, let's call it $200,000 in value. And so he's quite a bit younger. His deduction's not the 104 that Reginald got, who is older, 70 years old. This guy's 57. His deduction's going to be less because he's got a longer life in which to draw payments from this. His deduction's a little north of $70,000 for Jerry. Okay, so how do the payments come out on this? We think about this rental property. Let's presume that it was rented for 5 months while the trust owned it, and then the renter left, and it was owned for another 3 months, marketed, and sold. Okay, so if we have to make a 5% payment to Jerry, but all we have in the trust is a little bit of rental income and property, the rental property itself, it can be challenging to make that payment because there's not enough cash in the trust from the rents. So the way we draft these trusts or write these trusts is to have this flip provision where in the initial year, while the real estate is held, the trust pays net income, which would be the rental income less any expenses, say an HOA expense or property taxes. And then the calendar year after the sale, the trust flips and it becomes a trust that's called a standard trust, just like Reginald's, where it's 5% of the value after the year of sale. So in this case, we can see it kind of clearly here that he gets actual income, the rental income that the residence kicked off while it was rented in year one. It's sold in the latter half of year one, say it's in September or October. The net sale proceeds are invested and it's earning income and those assets are appreciating. And then year two happens. We sold this property a little bit more than we thought it was worth. And in year two, the trust is worth $220,000 or whatever it would be to cause a 5% payment to be $11,320 in year two. And then in year three, it's $11,309. Year four, we get this down market. So you still get the volatility after it's sold. But the key point of this is in that initial period, the calendar year in which the real estate is held before it's sold, we pay out net income instead of the full 5%. Other than that, it's very similar to Reginald's. All right, and then after the trust terminates, not in year 6, but off in the future, that remainder value passes to PLU. So again, if we think about Jerry's goals, he's tired of managing the rental property. The property goes into the trust. Well, who sells the property in the trust? Well, it can be Jerry if he wants to control that, or it can be PLU. And so if he's just totally done, then PLU would consider stepping in and managing the property, liquidating the property, marketing it and liquidating. He doesn't want to pay capital gains tax. We know that he's avoided that because it's going to a charitable entity. Say too with the depreciation recapture, it doesn't have to be recaptured at transfer because it's a tax exempt entity. And we know he has a meaningful gift to PLU. He's younger than Reginald, so his gift in 26 years, when he's expected to die by mortality tables, is going to be $320,000 when PLU can put it towards its good use. So I know, Doug and Karin, that we've done a couple of gifts together of gifts funded with real estate. So I think, Karin, you can share a specific example of PLU.
Yeah, we have a number of Jerry's here at PLU in Jerry's situation. Most recently, we have done a number of these with rental properties where folks are interested in not managing the rental property anymore. The most recent flip trust we did was a couple who I think had come to 2 or 3, Doug, of these presentations over the years and kind of always had it in the back of their head, and then reached their 70s and thought, I think it's time. We still want some income. We really like the monthly, quarterly income we get from this rental property, but we're really done mowing the lawn and, fixing the ends and all of that. So they made the gift of an apartment complex in Lakewood, and after it flipped, we're getting as much, if not more, than they were. I think they ended up getting more than they were receiving from the rental incomes. So really worked out really well, and it's going to be a really generous gift. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, let's look at a third donor. And again, if you have questions, Karin is tracking that, so please type those out as you have questions along the way. Also, of course, if you have questions after the call, Doug and Karin are available to assist you with those. All right, let's look at our next donor. This lovely lady is Janice, and she's 80 years old, and she'll tell us here what her objectives are. She says, I don't want to manage my certificate of deposit portfolio any more. And so she has this portfolio of CDs, certificates of deposit, and when they mature, as they're kind of constantly doing because she has such a large portfolio, she has to reinvest those proceeds. And she's not that satisfied doing that. That's not fun for her, and it's something that she has to oversee. And at times they mature and they sit in cash. And so she doesn't want to have to manage this anymore, but she does like the steady payments that the CDs have afforded her for several years. So she's got this goal here of reducing kind of her personal management of her, at least this portion of her portfolio, but maintaining the income. She said that, I also could use maybe additional income that I could really depend on. The rates of CDs have come down. She'd like to get that back up a bit. And she wants assurances that over the rest of her life, that this income will more or less stay the same. She's seen CDs come down. She's pretty conservative. That's why she's got so many CDs. And she just wants these to kind of be a kind of a steady payment for the duration of her life. So we see this here, that she wants certainty of these payments, and she doesn't want to outlive her assets. She doesn't want the situation where she may not have this income. She wants this certainty here. And she has a passion for the music department, and so she would love for the students who learn and perform in the music department to ultimately see the benefit of some of her blessing in her assets. Okay, so let's go to the next slide and take a look at what Doug and Karin might propose to Janice. Again, she's 80 years old, and she has opted to fund a charitable gift annuity. So this is different than the charitable remainder trust that we looked at. This one provides a fixed payment stream, not the variable income that we saw earlier. And so for her, she's going to get a payment about 6.5%, between 6 and 6.5%. It's all based on her age at the time of funding. And Doug and Karin can relay those rates to you that PLU offers. So what she does is she transfers $100,000 to PLU in exchange for a fixed payment, $6,500 in this case, that she'll receive each year, every year, for the rest of her life. That payment amount neither increases nor does it decrease, and it's not subject to CD rates declining or maybe increasing. It's not subject to the income is not subject to the market going down or up. She's going to get $6,500 each year, every year. When Janice, who's 80 years old, dies, PLU would be expected to receive in cash from this charitable gift annuity $104,000 that can be put towards the music department at that point in time. So let us know if you have any questions on this. I think it's fairly straightforward. Let's take a look at Janice and review quickly how this gift satisfied her objectives. So we talked about removing asset management. She doesn't have to do that anymore. She gives $100,000 in cash. A couple of her CDs have matured. She has $100,000. She transfers that cash to the gift annuity. She wants additional dependable income. Well, she, in this case, increased her income rate from her CDs. CDs were giving her, about 1% in income. This gift annuity, 6.5%. So she had a market increase in the income that she was receiving. She has certainty of her payments. It's an obligation, as we said earlier, of PLU, and they'll be paid out to her so long as Janice is alive. Something that's not mentioned here is she funded this with cash. A portion of her payment will come back to her tax-free. That she won't even have to pay tax on some of that payment. So that's a benefit to her as well. So even though it's a 6.5% payout, the effectiveness of that on an after-tax basis is even higher because a good portion of it is tax-free. And then finally, she loves the music department, and she'll have certainty that the music department will receive whatever funds remain after Janice dies. And I think we talked about the value of that being actually significant in this case. All right, any questions on that? Or Doug or Karin, I know have worked on many gift annuities over the years. Is there a story there that?
Yeah, we've had a lot of Janices. Fortunately, we've been very blessed, and the nice thing about the charitable gift annuity, in addition to, the guaranteed nature of the income, so we get people who are just a little risk averse as they get older, and they like the certainty of the income that we provide them. They like the income tax deduction. They love the tax-free portion, because especially now interest rates have come down so much that the tax-free percentage of the payments are higher than they have been in the past. And they love them so much. Oh, and one more thing, and the buy-in on a gift annuity is quite low. It's only $10,000 at PLU. And we can do second, third, and fourth ones for as little as $5,000. And we've had a couple of donors over the years that do this. They love it so much. They do one another year later or 2 years later. I think some of them are actually just kind of investing the money that we're paying them until they get enough money to buy another gift annuity with the money that we just paid them. So, anyways, it's fabulous. We think these things are great, especially in low interest economies like we're in right now.
Yes, thank you. Well, we talked about these two gift types, the charitable remainder trust and the gift annuity. And we said there's some sub-varieties. We talked on the charitable remainder trust, to the standard one that Reginald got. Jerry got the flip trust. In this case, Janice had the charitable gift annuity. We're going to look at another variety of the gift annuity that this donor, Joy, found was satisfactory towards her objectives. And that's a deferred charitable gift annuity. It's a variation of the charitable gift annuity that we just looked at. This is usually used for, as the name would say, for those who don't need income now, but want the deduction now, and they want assurance that they can get income in the future. So we'll look at this in Joy's case. So Joy, who is quite young, she's 62 years old. She doesn't need additional income now. She's still actively working and enjoying her career. But after she retires, she does want some additional income to support her in retirement. She's in her high income earning years. She's 62. She's been very successful in her career, and she'd like to lower some of the tax burden from that income. And so a deduction for making a gift to PLU would be beneficial to her as well. And she received a business degree from PLU and wants to support the faculty there that really were transformative in her life. And so that's one of her goals as well. So let's take a look at her gift. So here we see the deferred gift annuity, and we see that fixed payments begin at some point in the future. You can see this yellow line is the line of payments. She doesn't need payments now. She's 62. She thinks she'll retire maybe at 65 or something in this example. And so no payments for the first 2 years, and payments will start in year 4. So she funds a gift annuity with $100,000. If she were to get payments today, she'd get $4,000, a 4% payout rate. But since she's opted to defer payments, the PLU, Joy, understand that deferral, during that deferral, that $100,000 that she's gifting will grow in value. And so she should get a higher rate in exchange for the deferral. In this case, of course, she does. And so instead of a $4,000 payment, if she were to start in year 1 by deferring for 4 years, it's a $4,800 payment. That then starts, and once it starts, it goes for the rest of her life, and it neither goes up nor down. It's a gift annuity. So we get $4,800 in year 1, $4,800 in year 2, and in year 3. I mean, in year 4, year 5, and year 6. Sorry. And then after she dies, whatever's left attributable to this gift annuity passes to PLU to support the business faculty position that she found was so important to her in her life. So that's a deferred gift annuity set up at a specific date. When she turns 65, she wants it to start making payments, and it does so in year 4. There's another variety of these, yet another sub-variety of the gift annuity that I'll share with you. And this one we're seeing more and more donors do. And this one is the flexible deferred gift annuity. So still deferred, still you make the gift now, you get that deduction in your high income earning years, or because you've sold some property and you have a big tax event, even if you're not making, if you're retired and you sell one property, you got this big tax burden, you could do a gift annuity to offset that tax burden and satisfy an income objective as well. So in this case, in a flexible deferred, what she has done with PLU is she has said, I want a window of time in which I can turn this payment on. I want it to start in year 4 when I'll be 65. I might retire then. But if my current leadership at the company is still there and we're doing as well as we're doing now, I may be enjoying it so much I may work till I'm 70. But at some point I'm going to retire, and I want to be able to tell you guys, turn on the payment. And so we can do that. It's a flexible deferred gift annuity, and each year that she defers, her payout that goes up. So if she defers an additional year, it goes from 4,800 up to 5,000. If she were to defer till year 6, it'd go up from 5,000 to an amount higher than 5,000. All that's prescribed in the contract. Everybody knows it. It's just a matter of when you want to turn it on. So again, if there's any questions on that, feel free to use your Q&A chat feature. So let's take a look at Joy's objectives again and see how this gift lined up. She said, I'd like additional retirement income. Well, gift annuity is going to provide that for her. She said, I don't need the income immediately, but I could use a charitable deduction now. And that is accomplished in a deferred or a flexible deferred gift annuity. She gets the deduction now, and then the income gets turned on that set date or in the range of dates, depending on what is most satisfactory to her. And then she has confidence that this gift will support ultimately the faculty and business in the business program at PLU that she wants to support. So I think, Karin, you set up one of these gifts. Could you share that story with us?
Yeah, we did a flexible deferred fairly recently with a wonderful alum who actually his primary desire was charitable in this case. He had always wanted to fund a scholarship at PLU for children of people who have been teachers or firefighters. There's a whole list, but he'd always wanted to do this. And his stepmother passed away, and he got an inheritance. But he used that inheritance to accomplish what he wanted to accomplish, but also knew that he would need some of that inheritance later on. So he actually split the inheritance half as a current gift and half as a deferred CGA. And it was a flexible because he deferred it because he is not yet of retirement age. So he knows retirement's coming at some point, but he also doesn't have a set date for retirement. So he did a flexible deferred to kind of give himself this window of time for when he might need that income. So we have created this scholarship with the current gift, and then he's adding to it later with the deferred flexible charitable gift annuity. So, and then he got the tax deduction in the year that he wanted and needed it. So it's a pretty slick deal.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I think that covers the kind of the main two gift types. Again, charitable remainder trust and gift annuities, and then kind of the varieties within that. And I hope if we go back to our objectives that I was thinking about and you were thinking about from earlier on, we may see how some of these can satisfy some of our objectives. They're not going to satisfy every single one of the objectives. And many of our donors, their objective is to make a gift now and see it go to work at PLU immediately. And in that case, we're talking about a different gift type, an outright gift. And those are wonderful as well. But Doug and Karin, I know, are really good at working to help you understand your objectives and then to kind of align your objectives with one of these types of life income gifts. Maybe it's a gift that you make today. Maybe it's one of those third types where you make a gift through your estate plan. But Doug and Karin are available to help, and I'm obviously available to help them if they have any questions. Or if you have any questions now, happy to help answer any of those. I know we're running up on time. So I don't know, Doug or Karin, if you have any final comments, but certainly I'm available for any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Yeah, we'll leave a few minutes here while I'm talking for any last minute questions if anyone has them. But an overview again, we will put most of these points from Steve's slide into a document to share back out, and we will also share the recording of this. And then a link to past recordings. Doug and I and all of our colleagues are always available to talk. I think we know almost all of you on this call, Doug or I do, and then I know you also have relationships with some of our colleagues. So please reach out to us anytime with any questions, and our contact information will be in the email you get in the next couple of days. Any last words, Doug, that you have?
Just thank you all. Thank you, Steve, first of all, and thanks everybody who's online. We had a good turnout, so we're really happy about that. We appreciate you taking the time to learn about these, kind of outside the box thinking of ways to support PLU and other charitable organizations in whose mission you believe. And also, you have all of our best wishes for continued good health and safety as we, live in this time. And I hope that most of you are of the age where you hopefully have received or are in line for your vaccine. So I hope that happens soon and we can get back to life as normal.
Finally, if you have any topics that you are dying for this series to tackle, please let us know. There are more seminars to come. So thank you all for being here. Steve, thank you so much for joining us. We are grateful to have you.
And if those of you who are just shy, don't want to ask questions, just feel free to send either Karin or I a question at our personal at our PLU email addresses. So,
yep.
All right.
All right. Thanks all.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.